All right, everyone, the Republicans are trying to be Republicans again. It's not a big surprise. It seems like every time that you're handed even a marginal win, the goal of the neocon Republicans generally is to lose. MAGA Republicans, or even marginal MAGA, like a Ted Cruz or a Thomas Massie, or even Marjorie Taylor Greene sometimes, typically do a little bit better. And then you have core MAGA, and they do the best of all. And then you have like Rand Paul and the libertarian fringe of the Republican Party. They generally make better decisions. So I was surprised when I saw this morning the news, and Thomas Massie had tacitly signed on with the proposal of removing Speaker Mike Johnson. He's signing on with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was the one that got the ball rolling. Now, this is not an actual call to the floor to vote on removing Mike Johnson. It's effectively just a statement of dissatisfaction with his particular style of leadership. I understand. Disclaimer, I am totally amenable to the fact that Mike Johnson is not really doing his job. But have sympathy for the devil here for a moment, and then think pragmatically. Two things that I wanted to say. First, the Republicans have about a 2-seat majority in the House right now. It is razor thin. If you removed Mike Johnson, you would like as not end up with Hakeem Jeffries being the Speaker of the House. He's a minority leader. He would probably end up prevailing. Why? Because if the MAGA Republicans do what Gates did to McCarthy before, and I supported that decision, that was wise, removing McCarthy. He did some of the things that he pledged to do, but he was really, sort of dragging it around, kicking the can down the road on everything else. It was clear he wasn't governing in a proper style, and so he needed to be removed, right? But that's back when he had a 7-seat majority. And so you could pull it off. And even then, you remember, it took a little bit of time. If MAGA Republicans effectively force the hand of the House at large and have a bunch of Democrats, universally they'll sign on to removing Johnson because he's a Republican. You're going to end up with Hakeem Jeffries because the neocons will backlash against the MAGA Republicans for what they'll tell the American voters is a betrayal. And then they'll sign on. A couple of them will defect, and then Hakeem Jeffries will narrowly become House Leader. You'll have a strange moment where for the second time in U.S. history, the U.S. House has removed a speaker. They've vacated that position. And then you end up having a Democrat leading a House that is technically controlled by Republicans. At least rhinos, Republicans in name only in many cases. That's number one. It makes no sense. You're literally hurting yourself. And that's something that the neocons generally do. Secondly, think pragmatically. Mike Johnson is not doing a particularly stellar job as House Speaker. Admittedly, he's throwing the United States under the bus. He's greenlighting proposals that he doesn't need to greenlight as long as he can hold the House together, the House Republicans, and doesn't need to pass a bunch of bullshit legislation. FISA should not have been reauthorized, etc., etc., etc. That being said, what's the pragmatic alternative? Please offer me one. Republicans need to start thinking with more pragmatism. This is another reason why I'm not a Republican. It's not just about, well, they like to lose, or most of them are neocons that support the surveillance state and shit like that directly impacts me. It's not just that, it's also the lack of pragmatism, the stupidity. The old moniker is the Democrats are the evil party, the Republicans are the stupid party. Well, yeah, I guess in this particular instance that's the case, and Thomas Massie should know better. He's generally an intelligent guy. I didn't agree with his endorsement of Ron DeSantis, which was ill-fated. He's said and done some things that I don't agree with, but generally he's intelligent. He's one of the more intelligent members of the House Republicans. I don't understand exactly what you hope to accomplish by potentially vacating the House speakership. It makes no sense. You're going to end up with Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House, probably with an incoming Trump administration. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the neocons are trying to cleverly design things just to hamper Donald Trump in the end. Just like with that regulatory, can't remember the name of the act. I'll be covering it later, so I'll have to refresh my memory. But trying to simp for the regulatory state and basically maintain Biden's bureaucratic functions well into an incoming Trump presidency. The Republicans will probably in the end support it. They like the idea. You'll note that Trump was prevented from acquiring border funding mainly by the House Republicans for several years before he decided to dip into discretionary military spending. And then they all went crazy and took him to court over it. They lost, but, you know, in the end, they managed to delay him for a few years. Otherwise, the U.S. border right now would actually be properly guarded. Yeah, that was the Republicans that did that. It wasn't the Democrats. Issue after issue, the Republicans are handed a victory, and they snatch defeat from it. So they're handed a House majority, and what happens? They have a nervous breakdown because they won for once, and they decide, well, now's the time to resign. Fuck you. You know, I'm taking one for the team. The Republicans can't possibly win something. Oh my God. I've got to resign, apparently. Yeah, I'm getting older, and I'm tired of this shit, and let a Democrat take my position. Even though the Republicans at this point would probably be favored to expand their House majority, it's so razor thin that it's not even going to be meaningful. As we've seen, they can have a 7-seat majority and do absolutely nothing. So they're Republicans. It's just the way that things work. It's the way that things work around here in this town of D.C. Abortion, for example. I'll always go back to that one. The left overstretches on abortion to the point where the vast majority of the American public considers the Democratic Party at large, by extension, to be extreme on the issue. What do the Republicans do? Roe v. Wade ends. Instead of maintaining that it's a states' rights issue, like intelligent Republicans have consistently done, like Donald Trump, he's made that clear. He's reiterated that point for decades now. What do? They say, well, we need a national abortion law. We need to just ban abortion nationally. That'll go over real well in the competitive swing states. It's like they want to lose by design. That's very interesting now, isn't it, considering who their nominee is? It's like they're self-sabotaging. They'd rather throw themselves under the bus than win on any cultural issue. Education. You remember when CRT first sort of made its debut years ago. Yeah, it dates to the 70s, but public consciousness about CRT is more of a recent thing. Most people didn't know it existed until a couple of years ago. The Republicans, for the very first time in 50 or 60 years, actually lead on education as an issue in polling. What do? They ignore the issue. They stop talking about it entirely. They should have hammered that message every single day during the 2022 midterms, but they chose not to do that. They decided to talk about how they want to ban abortion instead. It's like they make the most stupid position they can possibly make at all times. Even when they're fundamentally correct, they just ignore the issue. When they have a clear-cut victory, they just stop talking about it. It makes no sense. Vacating Mike Johnson's seat may be justified in the sense that he is not doing his job as well as he should be doing it. He should be trying to hold their party together. And he's not doing that, admittedly. That's true. They're fundamentally correct. Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene are not wrong in that sense. But what is the alternative? Please give me a pragma. Who else is going to lead the House who's a Republican? You'll end up with a House that has a caretaker speaker, and it makes the Republicans look weak and pathetic and insane, basically. And you know that the legacy media will dogpile the story if that happens. So I would say just deal with Mike Johnson for now. Hope that the majority grows enough so that you can throw him out after the 24 election and get somebody in there who will actually do the job better. Until then, fucking bite your tongue and deal with it. You're going to have to deal with it. Sometimes in politics, and in civics, you have to do something that's unpleasant and bide your time. The Republicans never really the ones to show strategic patience, I would know. That's about all. Peace out.